38, 38, 38, 40. You join me here at Linear Fisheries. We're on Brasenose 1. Got down yesterday afternoon, had a look about. The complex is absolutely rammed, but we've managed to grab ourselves a couple of pegs. Yeah, we've had one or two fish, and luckily enough, just as Alex was pulling through the gate, I managed to get a double take. This one being the biggest of the brace at just shy of 39 pound. We'll get some pictures, get her back, and I'll talk you through how I'm approaching my session and hopefully bag a few more. Here's the second part of the brace, a lovely Brasenose 1 scaly. I don't know, 18, 19 pounds I suppose. So let's get her back and see what the session brings. Right, so that's the rods back out, and I'll briefly talk you through the session so far. We got down here yesterday, sort of early-ish, about 9 o'clock yesterday morning. Had a quick flick around these two lakes, and they were jam-packed. Spoke to a couple of lads that were leaving, and sort of eyed up a couple of swims, well, the ones we actually ended up in. But before we committed ourselves, we went and had a little look around Manor and St John's, and again, there was a lot of swims taken on there. There wasn't really any swims we fancied. So we popped back round, waited for the lads to move on who were in these swims, and jumped in behind them. I suppose the girlfriend, she got her rods out probably about 3-4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, just chucked a couple of zigs out while we sort of set up. I waited for another guy to go, got my rods out around about 7 o'clock, and it wasn't long before I had my first bite. I think the rods were probably out about 10-15 minutes. I just put about 5 or 6 bombs over the top and had a just over 24 pound mirror. With that, the second rod went off, and that was a mirror just shy of 26. And then got the rods back out again, and I had another one just before dark. That was probably a scraper 20. And then sort of through the hours of darkness, it slowed up a little bit for me, and Jordan had one just over 23 pounds, so that was nice. And yeah, sort of had a little recast first thing this morning, got them all good, got a bit more bait back out there, and it wasn't long before the alarms are going again, and had that brace that you saw me with earlier. So yeah, one just under 39 pounds, that's a right result. So we got in these pegs, it's the middle of the lake. Fish will get pressured into these sort of like wider areas, you know, when there's a lot of anglers about, and it gives you a lot of options, you know, with distances. I mean, it's probably, I don't know, 300 yards wide, I suppose. So it gives a lot of room for the fish to get into. Yeah, so worth getting into some good swims rather than just dropping in the first ones you come across. Right, so I'm going to get a bit more bait out now, and hopefully the afternoon brings a little bit more action. So that worked, literally 5 bombs over the top of the rods. 10 minutes later, we're playing another Brasenose carp. Hopefully we get it in, get the rod back out, bit more bait, and hopefully the action continues this afternoon. Well done, baby. Right, so this is the result of that take we just had. Classic Brasenose carp, probably about 22, 23 pound. Yeah, and it came just after putting sort of 4 or 5 spots back out over the top, and it just goes to show on waters like this with a lot of fish, it's worth just, you know, keeping it topped up, keep a little bit trickling in, and hopefully you'll be catching plenty like this. Quite surprising really, like with it being so bright, to be catching on the bottom. I would have thought it'd been a zig day today with the sun out, but we're still catching on the bottom, so we're gonna stick to that game plan for at least the next couple of hours and see what happens.
So I started probably about 10 years ago. Started going down the river with my dad and my mum when I was younger, and then a little bit of sea fishing as well. And then when I was a little bit older, I decided to try the carp fishing for myself and went down just like on a little runs water, had a few carp and just loved it basically. Brings back good memories of like my granddad and fishing with my family over the years basically. Being able to relax by the side of a lake, the socialising with everyone and just the fish really. I don't really like doing day sessions because you don't tend to catch as many fish, but turned out that was wrong because one of my first fish on that session was one of the biggest fish out of Big Haze, and yeah, I couldn't believe it. Basically, most of the fish we'd had before then, we'd joke about and go, oh, it's a white lady, it's a white lady. And then Kia was like, oh, it's a white lady. And I was like, no, no way. It was just probably my favourite memory fishing. Yeah, I like to push myself. I'm trying to be able to cast a bit further and fish a bit tidier at like further distances. And just learning new things really, like it's completely different fishing a gravel pit to fishing down Todber. It's much bigger water, bigger fish, much more excitement when you've got a fish on thinking it could be the one, it could be massive. And in match conditions you're a lot more busy and you're a lot more on it, and I think it's good practice to be able to do that in your sessions as well. It like kind of keeps your head going a bit more.
So it's been a couple of hours since we had that last fish. I redid the rod, put a few more spoms out. Nothing's happened. The weather conditions look pretty bang on for it, to be fair. So I'm going to chuck another sort of 5 or 6 spoms out and see if I can spur on a bite. I tend to find on these like heavily stocked waters that ringing that dinner bell with this one of these little bad boys can get the bites going again. So I'm going to get this spom out and we'll have a look at the simple mix I use in a little bit more detail. So I'm just going to run you through the simple mix that I use here on Brasenose 1, and to be fair, any of the lakes on Linear I'd use this. So basically, majority of this is this stuff, sweet corn. Carp love it here, they love it everywhere. I've got loads of boilies in here, plenty of 10 mils, a few 15s. I'm using 15s on the hair, so I wanted to make sure there was a few out on the spot as well. And then just a small amount of hemp. I don't use loads of hemp. I don't want them getting preoccupied on really small particles, but that's for 2 things. It sort of gets in amongst the silt and the gravel, keeps the fish coming back, and also it aids with the spom going out, you know, it fills all the little gaps in the spom. So when you're sort of chucking it 120 yards, as I am on this session, It just goes out that little bit easier. So it's a dead simple mix. It's made up of 3 components, and it's worked wonders for me over the years up here on Linear and plenty of other lakes that I've fished. Topped up the spot with another half a dozen spons. 15-20 minutes later, the rod's rattled off again, so that worked. Proper kited left this one. Feels alright, to be fair. Scrapping like that big and did this morning, but I'll probably be made to look stupid in a minute if we get it, lucky enough to get it in. It took like loads of line, again at the start, just like that big and did this morning. Yeah. Salmon swoop to perfection.
It's 41.4 pounds.
Is it really?
Let's have a look.
Straight up?
Have a look.
41, 41.2, 41.4. Right, so not only did topping up the spot result in another bite, it's also bagged me a Brasenose 1 40 pounder. This little beauty went 41 pounds, 4 ounces. It felt like a good fish from the off, to be fair. It felt just like that one I hooked earlier, that one that just went just under 39 pounds. But I really didn't expect to be cradling a 41 pounder right about now. Awesome. Look at the girth on that. Crazy. Ooh.
So I'm getting my rods ready to get back out after Kia had his 40 pounder. I had that fish last night on a simple bottom bait, but I'm going to switch it up tonight and try and cast out a solid bag. I'm doing this because I had a bit of luck on that method on my match in March over here on B1. So hopefully it will produce a few bites tonight. Okay, so these are pellets I'm using in my solid bag. I've got CC Moore oily bag mix, Pacific tuna pellets and trout pellets in there. It's important that you use lots of small pellets and then you can get your bags nice and compact. I've got my solid bag, I'm ready to wrap the rods up. I'll chuck it out and hopefully I'll have a fish to show you guys soon.
Right, I'm just going to run you through the rig I'm using on this session. It's a nice simple blowback style rig with a shrink tube kicker and just a little whipping knot that keeps the hair in place. That's fished on a lead clip setup, 4 ounce lead, so I'm fishing at around about 120 yards. And attached to that I've got a Pacific tuna hard hook bait. I've drilled it out ever so slightly, put a pop up in there just to balance it out. On these sorts of waters that are really heavily stocked, I like to keep my rigs nice and simple. I see lots of anglers coming to places like Linear that just overcomplicate their rigs when they really don't have to. So that's the rods all set for the evening. This time yesterday I had a couple of fish in this sort of period, so I'm hoping for a little bit more of that. Also, you might notice that I'm using 2 rods. The main reason for this is if you walk up and down these banks, you'll notice everyone's using 3 rods. Even some people are doubled up and they've got 6 lines in the water. And I think by having that one less line in your water, it can actually work in your favour. I mean, these heavily pressured day ticket waters, the fish will look to get into the least pressured areas of the lake. And as it stands, nearly every peg on the lake's taken, and I really feel that it's worked to my advantage today. A few more casts to get out, the wind sort of started pushing into our bank a little bit and making the casting a little bit more awkward, but I persevered, got it on the spot, a little bit more bait, and off it rattled. Feels alright as well, to be fair. So I redid the rods, chucked a little bit more bait out, and literally 10 minutes later, the bite alarm's burst into life, and I was attached to this, I don't know, sort of low 20, I suppose. Yeah, so it's looking good for the night ahead. So we're just coming into darkness now. I'm gonna have a little roundup on how today's gone. And to be fair, it's been quite an eventful one for myself. Obviously had that 41 pounder earlier on, and that was backed up by one just shy of 39 first thing this morning. And had a few sort of like low 20s and a few upper doubles sort of chucked in the mix as well. I think the reason I've sort of done pretty well today is the fish have definitely been further out, and they've sort of stayed further out. I think with the pressure that's on the lake, it's kept them out in the middle. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's just typical of the lake, isn't it, really? The fish hold up in the middle, and I'm casting out 20 wraps. I'm quite confident, as I had that fish last night. I know that I'm fishing tidy, and I'd rather fish in a little bit closer and know that it's how I want it and nice and neat.
So fingers crossed we have 1 or 2 fish tonight. Let's see how it goes.
Yep.
So we've only got a couple of hours left of the session. To be fair, I had a couple of fish just before it got dark last night, and I decided to, with the results I decided to reel them in for the night. I've put a little bit of bait out, hoping that this morning they might have pushed into my area with no lines in the water. So that's the first one out. I'll get the second one out and see what happens. Well, that worked. Bringing the rods in last night, putting a little bit of bait out. It's not something I'd normally do, to be fair, especially if I was fishing like a match scenario or something like that, because you obviously want to catch as many as you can. But as I had the result I did last night, I thought, get a good night's sleep, put a bit of bait out, and hope to get a few fish in front of me first thing this morning. And yeah, this one's been out probably 20 minutes, and off it's romped. Yeah. Hopefully we get her in. This is a result of that quick take after redoing the rods this morning. Just shy of 30 pound, I think it went 29 pounds 6 ounces. Yeah, and this is probably going to be the last fish of the session. We've really got to head on. It's been really enjoyable. We both caught fish. I've caught a few more than Jordan. I think that's mainly down to the fact that they've been sort of out a little bit further. She's fished really well, to be fair. She fished exactly the same as me, and on another day, if the fish were just in a little bit closer, I'm sure she would have caught a few more. But she hasn't blanked, and I'm pretty sure there's a few around the complex that have over the last few days. So that's a result in itself, you know. Not the easiest waters, they're quite demanding, so I think you've done well, to be fair, sweetheart. And you'll catch a few next time we come up, for sure.
Hopefully, yeah.
So anyway, we'll get this little beauty back, right, get the rods in and hit the road.